Welcome, all you Sheehanites, to another special episode of Sheehan is Dead Comics. I'll be speaking with the keeper of the Batman Book Club, the one, the only, Mr. Ryan Lauer. He was very gracious to come on the show, and I'm sure you're going to have as good a time listening as I did speaking with him. So here we go. Hey, man, I'm really grateful that you came on.
Yeah,
And
thanks for the invite.
you're very welcome. It's a pleasure. And I know people, it's only polite to say, "Oh, I listen to your podcast," but I do. I've listened to it many times. I've been sorting mail at like 4:35 in the morning, listening to the Batman
Oh,
book club.
cool. Wow.
Yeah. So,
What a way to start your day.
yeah. You help the residents of Rensselaer, New York, which is about 30 minutes south of here, get their mail.
Perfect. How happy to lend a hand,
Yeah,
or an
yeah,
ear
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you want to say.
Yeah, without any
Oh, I
paper
appreciate it.
nonsense. That happens. I really enjoy your work. And I know you're part of the BOF network, but I really think you could you could create the Ryan Lauer network, and I think you do just fine for yourself. So,
Ah, ah, say something bad. Tell me something I can do better because it exists.
dude, I love my favorite podcast, besides with Chris Clow, because I really did love the Dark Knight's Metal.
Yeah, he's the smartest man in the room, and
No,
he
he
will
is. He
never
is.
ever admit that he's the smartest man in the room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's a humble man.
he's way too humble to tell you how humble he is. But
Yep.
I love when you and Hoss are together too. You and Hoss are like the dynamic duo
Yeah.
for me personally. Yeah, you and the sheriff.
Oh, well,
So
thanks.
no,
Thanks. Yeah,
really, I
he's
really enjoy
yeah,
you
he's a
guys.
good one to chat with. He's become as I said the last time he was on, the adaptation, my adaptation guy,
Yep, I
because
listened.
it's what he's pretty much done each adaptation except for Batman Forever, which was like episode like 12 or 13 way back in 2020. Yeah, he's been on like each one since then of every adaptation. And I'm like, well, it's your thing now.
It's your
That's
thing.
that's what you got to do. Batman Begins turns 20 next year. Guess what
Oh
we're
man,
doing, Hoss?
yeah, that's awesome, man. I remember I bought the comic for that because when I was a kid, I bought the Batman Returns comic, the adaptation. It just blew my mind. And then about 3 years ago, I went to the Albany Comic Con, which is like this real small, like, I don't know if you have any county cons near you, but it's like in the Polish
Mm,
Sportsman's Club here. And I
mm.
was going through some comics just for fun, and I found it, and I freaked out. I was like, "Oh my god, there it is!" I haven't read this since I
Yeah.
was 10 years old. So
That one, yeah, I had Hoss and Justin on with that one, and both of them were like, eh. And I'm like, I think this one's great.
yeah, yeah,
I think this is a great adaptation.
yeah,
I think the
yeah.
art's great. I think the paper quality was like the older kind of
Yes,
newspapery kind of quality too.
yes,
And I'm like, I love
yes,
that. I love
yes,
that a lot more than the glossy stuff.
yes, yeah.
Which, let's see, next year's also Batman Forever, in which that I could do the comic. And I think that's glossy. But anyways, regardless.
You know what? I appreciate what they're going for with glossy, but I really do like the paper better.
Mhm. All
And
those Tales of the Batman and Legends of the Dark Knight reprints that they've done of collected artists and stuff like that. So Brayfogle especially. Um, I have a lot of singles from his run on Batman, and to do a compare and contrast. And though my issues themselves, the physical issues, are a little faded, it's like that's like kind of what you're saying of like, oh, I get it and I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it has taken away by reprinting on this glossy paper. Like it has, and some colors are even like some pages they're just for the reprints are okay. We've got pink, we've got blue, we've got green and yellow, and let's just use those to fill in everything. We're over here. It's like, well, no, this has a blend of purple. This has actually a blend of purple and blue. This actually has some blacks, and it's like you miss some of that, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
well,
That's what we got.
you're one of the people who I first heard, and I like freaked out when you were like, "Oh, the smell of the paper," and I'm like, "Yes, the smell of the paper, like that's everything."
Yeah.
It's like,
Justin and I got to get that Yankee Candle going,
yeah,
the
yeah, I
floppies.
know,
So
yeah,
he
yeah,
he always credited with the floppies. He's like, smell them floppies when he did the Let's Go
yes,
comic show. So that is
yes,
all him. But when it comes to like books and especially comics of like newly print, I seriously go back as I flipped through it, like it was weird. I know it's weird, but
no,
then
it's not. I do the
like
same
he
thing.
and I both are like, dude, smell. Smell. It's
Yeah.
comic book paper. That's
Yeah, yeah,
newspaper. We
yeah,
need
yeah.
that candle. We need
Yeah,
it
yeah,
for
yeah.
all nerds everywhere.
Yeah, nerds unite. Well, speaking of
Hmm.
the smell of paper, there's really
Yep.
nothing like the smell of an absolute edition. I find the inky smell is much more pungent in those, and I
Hmm.
love absolute editions.
Yes. I know what you're gonna
This
hold
one,
up.
let me show it to you. This one.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
that. It's the long Halloween. Check it
Yeah.
out. Long
That's
Halloween.
the best absolute edition that they've done.
Yeah, in the whole wide world, right? And I
Hmm.
love how they stayed with the paper, still matte.
Hmm.
I love it. I just love the smell. We had on oh, dude, that's so awesome. We had
That
on
paper
yeah.
for Tim Sale, especially,
Mm-hmm.
for that Dark Knight, or not Dark Knight, Dark Victory and Haunted Knight. I'm so glad they used those papers because the reprint editions now that they're doing on glossy for
Mm.
Long Halloween and Dark Victory, and it is such a like, it does not, it just doesn't work as well. It really doesn't for how much black is like that paper inside that absolute. It's like that's the way to read it. And I've gone back, so I bought the Long Halloween on trade first in the early 2000s, and it had the thick paper. And then in 2020, it sent me down a rabbit hole on eBay to buy stuff. And I tracked down for a good price the original hardcover of Long Halloween. And they used the thick paper too. And then the reprints now seeing are all in glossy. It's just like, no, no, this isn't. I don't know what the cost efficiency is, but it definitely detracts from the story.
It really does.
I
Oh, and
like it.
also, by the way, I have to say thank you for Hoopla. I didn't know what Hoopla was until I kept hearing you talk about it. And so
Yes.
now I have it, and my co-pilot Scott has it, and my other friend, I'm like, because my other friend is really cheap, and I'm like,
Hmm.
listen, I know you're real cheap. You can just go on Hoopla. You just need your library
Yes.
card. You can read everything. So,
Yes. It is. So my library, I know it was allowing when I was looking to like checking to see if certain books were available,
mhm.
and how many copies I had or whatever. And it said, or, check this book out digitally. And I tried that on my iPad, but I had an older iPad and it said it wasn't up to date. And I'm like, oh, dang, okay. So still going to the library. So you can still smell pages when, check it out from the library.
Mhm.
You can't smell the pages through Hoopla. But when I got a new iPad and then it said it's through Hoopla, download the app. And I did and plugged it in. And then my mind was blown at the endless amounts of stuff that's available on Hoopla. And then I'm just like, anybody I'd check with, nobody knew about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not the only person that knows about this thing. And crazy enough, somebody I used to work with, she before working there used to work uh for Hoopla and uploaded digital stuff or whatever. And I'm like, I know Hoopla. Oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing ever. And I keep trying to get a hold of somebody in Hoopla and be like, can we work here like on something? Can you put Batman Book Club on your like in your app or something? Because I talk about Hoopla every single episode, and I say
You
it's the greatest app of all time. It's
you
the
do
greatest app of all time
you do you
because
do.
it is the greatest app of all
You
time.
should do one
And
of
I know a
those.
lot of people now.
You should do one of those Twitter polls and be like, just for fun, how many of you found out about Hoopla through listening to the Batman Book Club? I bet you get a lot of responses.
I see. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that either. Just gonna be like, hey, come on, give me credit. I'm like,
Yeah, like
even
like
if it's
uh
true, I'm like,
like
no,
no, but I mean, I think you really were because even I did it. And you also saved me money too, because now when there's books that I normally wouldn't read, but I would be curious about, I would just buy them because that's how
yeah.
I roll. Whereas now I can just go on Hoopla and read it
So
digitally.
it's like it's a win-win because there's something like I don't know if I should really what are the extras like in a book?
Right.
Should
Yeah.
I upgrade?
Yeah.
Oh, good. It says deluxe edition. It's gonna read and fill the same amount, deluxe edition or not, through my iPad. But I'm gonna get to actually like preview the extras. And if I like the extras, and be like, you know what, I should. Because I have an old version that's just the story only. This extras and the new edition has this. Okay, so because of Hoopla, it's got me to go and buy this book. Something I'd never read before. I'm like, I'm not just gonna spend 20 bucks on a whim. Let's give it a shot and see it. And I'll start reading it and feel, oh, I totally dig this. Then I'll stop and I'll go get it. Or I'll read the whole thing and then I'll go and get it. Or I read it and I'm like, not worth a buy. Thanks, Hoopla. I didn't buy it. But so it's like, it's not me avoiding spending money. It's helping me give things more of a shot
You're
rather than get
curating.
mad that I spent $20 on this. I'm ticked off because I did not like it. What a waste. Well, now I'm not going to take a shot on something for a while because I just wasted it, you know? So yeah, more fortunately, I'm hearing more people. And it's not like it's like it's taking over the country.
The planet.
It's like a small scale, yeah. But I'm hearing more people that are like, "Oh, Hoopla's great. Hoopla's great." Clay McCormick, he's a comic book writer and artist. When I had him on the show and I mentioned Hoopla, and he's like, "Yes, Hoopla," and I'm like, it's like one of those things of,
You know.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
my people, my
Yeah.
people.
My
You know
people. Yeah.
this? You know Hoopla? He's like, "Yeah, Hoopla's awesome. I love Hoopla." I'm like, "Thank you." Yes. So I think Sean Murphy, they grouped his stuff on the homepage of comics one time. So I took a screenshot of it and I emailed him and I was like, "Hey, so this is on the app Hoopla. Um, Clay uses it because he and Clay are good friends." And I said, "And I use it. It's a legit thing." And I go, "It's awesome." And they've grouped all of your stuff and just called it whatever. And he put out like some kind of post about it too, and it was about Hoopla. I'm like, "Yes, spread the word. Spread the word on Hoopla."
Well,
Totally
speaking
worth it.
well, speaking
Best.
of Sean Gordon Murphy, I really enjoyed his work. I've enjoyed your interviews with him. He seems to
I
really
love
like
interviewing that
you.
guy.
No,
Apparently.
he really does. You could tell by, you can tell by listening to the
Oh,
way
that's
he
good.
speaks with you. And I heard him speak with like I don't know if you've ever watched Near Mint Condition on YouTube.
Hmm.
Ever check that out? Okay.
Yeah.
So I
Omar,
heard
right?
his interview with Omar.
Omar?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard his
Okay.
interview with Omar, I think last week or the week before.
Hmm.
And you could tell he jams with Omar, but the chemistry he has with you is like a singular thing. Like he really likes talking to you.
Well,
So
I appreciate that. I was total luck and happenstance on how I actually through Batman on Film, I know I'd messaged him while White Knight was coming out, and you could direct message and stuff on Twitter, and he used Twitter more then and everything, and we would tweet like positive because I was reviewing his book, and I kept I was nothing but praise because it was genuine. I think the Midwest way, if you don't like something, is just avoid talking about it.
yeah,
It's not, hey, I'm going to talk to you. I don't really like your stuff. It's like, no, we're just going to keep it positive. We're just going to skate around it.
yeah.
But so it's like if I do like it, well, then I'm going to tell you. So I kept messaging him, and then I was just asking, like, do you want to come on for an interview or whatever? And he was just bombarded by so much stuff, and he's like, I'm sorry, like I can't, I'm too. And he said before too, he really limits his outlet because he's like, I just kind of find myself, I lose track of what I'm saying, like because I'm talking so much and blah, blah. I'm like, you don't even need to give me an explanation. It's completely fine. And then for Beyond the White Knight, he said like actually DC had kind of screwed up their marketing and it was a mess. And so he's like, I've got to go out and do a push.
Ooh.
And just randomly through Instagram, I just sent him a message and he was on at that time and he messaged me back. And he's like, sounds great. And it was like late Friday night. And he's like, how about Monday? And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, we got this. We're cool. And then when I sat down and talked to him, it felt very just like chill. There was no or anything.
There's
It
no
just felt
fishing
like we were just
there.
talking.
Right. There's no fishing for answers. Like, at certain points when an
Yeah.
interview hits a dead zone, you're like fishing. But you
Hmm.
guys, no, I didn't sense that. Like you really enjoyed talking to him and you made an
Yeah.
impression on him.
Every time that I get to talk to him, it's very easy to talk to him and it's great. And I mean my lady, even when I can still picture it. And when I was done talking to him that first time, and I opened up and I just go, whoa. And she was like, what? And I go, he was effing awesome. I was like, he was just so chill. And I'm like, I go in, I try to go in and be as prepared as possible, but I'm not just like reading a list of like, so did you like Batman?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's like, these are things he's answered 100 times. So it's like, um, and then, yeah, like after that, he was like, well, let's talk again. And the after the halfway point, and then we just email and stuff too, not like best friends about it. So tell me about life, Sean. It's usually like I compliment about work, or if I have something, the hoopla thing, whatever, send to him. And he's always kind. When I met him at um oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the C2E2 in Chicago, the con there. I met him and he said, and I go, and I remember just stepping up. Sorry, I'm rambling here. You didn't ask for all
No,
this.
no, go ahead. No,
As I'm
your money,
standing in
baby.
line, he, and he's, he was there with his wife. And it's like people, talk to him, sign whatever picture, and then they move on and talk to her, sign picture, and the next people step up. And so I go stepping up, and he's like, saying, whatever, bye to that guy, and then he looks up at me, and I go, "Hey, Sean, Ryan Lau," and I got like loud, and he goes like, "Oh," and he gets up and he just like puts his hand out and shakes it, which made me laugh, and I shook my hand, and yeah, he just grabbed everything and he drew. So I don't have it. It's a Batman Ninja Turtles one now, but I've got a Beyond the White Knight poster. He drew Batman on it, and I think it's a charge for him to like sketch Batman on stuff and
Yeah,
whatever. He signed all my stuff. He drew Batman on the poster. My White Knight #1. I think he drew Batman on and signed and whatever. And yeah, he was awesome. Um, yeah, and he just said when the next time I talked to him that I podcasted with him, he was just like, "I knew it was you as soon as you opened your mouth." Like he's like, "I knew, like I knew it was you by your voice and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh my God, thanks, Sean." And then I like turned into like a like a dork. I'm like,
no,
"I
yeah.
appreciate it.
No,
Thank
I
you.
love it, man. I
That's who
love
I
it. I
am."
love it. I
So,
love it.
yeah, and then he was kind enough earlier this year that he came on my show. Uh, so yeah, I mean he's awesome. He's probably, and I've gotten to talk to Bermeo. I got to meet Bermeo for like a one-on-one interview in a comic shop in
Yeah,
2019.
I always get a
Awesome.
kick in your story. I was running there. I'm all sweaty, and I'm like,
It
"Hi, Lee.
was.
My name's
It
Ryan."
was. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Oh
yeah,
God, that's terrible. And then he's apologized because he said that he was sick that day, so he felt like he wasn't like,
as
you
engaged.
know,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, exactly. And I was like, "No, you were great. I was just hot and
yeah.
tired." And then yeah, I've gotten to talk to him too, and that's great. And like everybody I've gotten to talk to is great. But yeah, I'm like with you. If something, and it's great that I know how I feel in talking with him, but to hear somebody who's actually listened to it and to say what you said is nice to hear. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't sound like an idiot talking to him. It's
Not at
it's a
all.
good flow of just of it's cool. So
To Judd Winnick. Judd is a wonderful guy. He's another guy that I chased for like a year. So
mhm,
on Twitter, he would post something, and I'd be like, "Oh, I love this," and then he'd send me like a GIF of Red Hood like waving. And
mhm.
then like I would start doing that to him. And then one day I probably sent him like 4 or 5 direct messages. And then a couple he would respond to. He's like, "Look, I'm really booked up with, I think it's Hilo, Hilo, his kid's book." He's like,
Mhm.
"I'm really booked up. I won't be available, but thanks for reaching out." He told me that like 2 times. And then one day I just reached out to him and he's like, "Hey, here's my email. Email me." And then within 2 weeks, he came on in September, and it was like, wow, like you said with Sean, it just came
Yeah,
together real fast.
that's what. So that actually. Okay, so Bermejo was a complete bill at Batman on Film, because the first time meeting him and interviewing stuff was for Batman on Film. Um, me coming up in episode 100, I was talking with Bill, and I'm like, man, I just don't like asking people for favors because that could put you in a weird spot or whatever. And he's like, no, he's been friends with Lee for a long time, and shot Lee an email, and Lee was like, sure, probably because he'd met me and he knew that I wasn't like weird. That probably has a lot, that has a lot to do
It's
with it
important.
sometimes.
Important.
And so that was completely generated by Bill. Sean was one that it was all me. However, it was for Batman on Film because Sean had to direct to a bigger audience. Um, and obviously Batman on Film and my podcast, it's like it's one is really big and one is small. You
Mhm.
can guess which one's big. And
Yeah, but
so
I
he
think
did
you
this.
got to
So
do
that was
pretty
like
good.
using Batman on Film. Um,
That gets you in the
was
door.
orchestrated by me. So it was like, okay, that one was the teamwork. Michael Uslan on my show was all Bill
Oh,
because
Michael
Bill's friends
Euclid
with
is like
him.
the kingfish. I've like reached out to him, like just tweeted him and just
Yeah.
hoping for like anything. I would love to speak with him.
Um but I mean I felt like an honor because Michael gave me his email. But he's so freaking busy.
Have you listened
It's
to
pretty
his
insane.
book or read his book, The Boy Who Loved
Hmm.
Batman?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
listened to
and
it.
and Batman's Batman, his second one.
I
which is
haven't
how I got to
listened.
talk with him the first time.
Okay, the first one I listened to, and I was like, man, this is such a great book. I'd be working and listening to it on Audible. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Um, but then it was like, so Kelly Jones, like
He
there's
was
some
cool.
where
I
when
like
you
that
can,
one.
when you feel, so how you just kind of said like you orchestrated it yourself. There's like a sense of like accomplishment
Yeah,
doing that way.
I feel
And
like
I'm
the
totally,
prettiest girl said yes to me. I'm
yeah.
happy. That's how I
The
articulate it.
prettiest girl did say yes to me.
Hmm.
um, I've told, I've told Bill many times too of just kind of like very appreciative of when he's helped me, but just like I've got to try and like do something without having to ask someone for help and accomplish. Kelly Jones was one. Tom King was wow. In which Kelly Jones,
I enjoyed those, by the way.
it
Both.
was via, thank you. Kelly Jones was awesome
He
because he's
was.
totally not what you expect by his art, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm so sorry that you're so disappointing and that you're not some like gothic
Gothic. He's not like
horror
Alan. Yeah,
everything,
he's not like Alan Moore, you know?
not like this heavy metal voice or anything like that. He's a
Yeah.
very like clean spoken, nice guy and everything. And I'm like, that's
Very
awesome. It's
jolly.
just so
Very
great.
jolly.
Yeah. And then like the Tom King one was like I was proud of that one too because that one was all me, and it's just because he's so freaking nice, that he I made a tweet, took a picture of the deluxe editions of his run, and I was just like, man, I'd love to talk to Tom King someday, and then nothing happened, and then I just retweeted it, quote tweeted it, whatever, and said just putting this out there, hoping Tom King will see. And then he just responded and he was like, that's awesome, let's make it happen. But I opened up my phone and I tons of notifications, and I'm like, huh? And I saw, that's awesome, let's make it happen, Tom King is now following you. And then he said like DM me or something, so I did, and then it was pretty quick. And then I messaged him about, I would love to have the editors of his book on. I'm like, I would like a perspective of an editor. So Tom King's crushing it, right on Batman.
Mhm.
What's an editor do in that situation? It's like Tom King, who is like peak level of comic book writing and storytelling right now. Who am I to like give notes on his scripts and stuff? That's not how Tom King would see it. But as an editor, I'd imagine that's what an editor would think. And I'm like, I would love to pick the brain of someone in that position. The editor, while Scott Snyder was on Batman and New 52, I'd really want to hear their position and what they're thinking. So I reached out to Tom and I was like, your editors for Batman. And he was like, Jamie Rich, and I forget the other one that he mentioned. And he's like, I think that would be an awesome idea. Also, when are you going to have me on again? We need to talk more Batman. And I'm like, hey, whenever you want, let's do it right now or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
well, obviously, if you're in the corner, you notice how busy he is, not just with comic books right now.
Now
Um,
he's writing movie.
yeah. So he sent me his email and said, email me. And so then it's like that was like a whole other thing too. I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I've got Tom King's email. Oh my gosh. And he's
Right.
responded because I have written him emails and he has responded to me. Like, and not just in thanks, have a good day. No,
Right.
it's like it's not that. It's something more. It's not like a whole dear
Sure.
diary or
Dear
anything. It's just
Diary.
you just
That's
know
perfect.
that it's
No,
like,
I
okay, this
understand.
is
Yeah.
he's actually responding to me.
Right.
So that's like another sense of accomplishment. And then Tim Sheridan was another one that was like I reached out to him and then I did it kind of like, well, it was for Long Halloween. And I was like,
I
well,
love
we could
that
talk on
interview, by the
Batman on
way.
film.
You crushed
Tim's
that one.
awesome.
Crushed that
Tim's
one.
freaking awesome. You've met him in person.
I did. I met him
You
at,
know how good he is.
yeah, I didn't expect to
Yeah.
see him. We're walking down the aisle and he's walking past me. I'm like, wait a minute. I know you. You're Tim Sheridan. He goes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I told him, I'm like, I follow you on Twitter. He goes, let's follow each other. And then I'm like, I have this YouTube show. He's like, I'd love to come on. So
Yeah. He's a jolly guy, but he too, it's kind of like, okay, got this guy talking to me. Is he weird or not? But then he knew somebody who is close to Bill. And so it's like, okay, it was a tag team there of me and Bill, Batman on film is how we got Tim on. And then, yeah, and then I've had, let's see, talked to him Long Halloween parts 1 and 2, and then I've had him on my show twice. And I actually just messaged him earlier today, and I haven't checked to see if he was responding. So that's like another thing. And he called me his friend. Uh,
friend,
but that's like that's
friend.
cool too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's a cool that's a cool thing too. And and I've talked to him a lot over the past couple of years and stuff too, and that's awesome. So these are like, it's so cliche of kind of like those are things that are really cool, and I do. And then there's people, and then it's not to say that anybody else, if they're not in the comic book industry, talking to them, that they don't, it's not as cool. Of course it's awesome. I've talked to so many other people that I wouldn't know if we didn't talk about Batman comics and stuff. I wouldn't know you if we didn't talk Batman comics. We haven't really talked Batman comics. Talked about
No,
the smell of Batman comics.
the smell
But
of Batman comics.
yeah,
Yes, but that's
adventure
important.
awaits. But it's like those that all that's the stuff that's like really cool, as opposed to me checking download numbers and follower numbers and stuff like that. It's like to have gotten to sit there, and I don't know how many people, I can't tell you how many people have listened to the podcast of me talking to Sean Murphy, but I'm like, but I've talked to him 4 times and it's been awesome conversations. Like I talked to
Yeah,
Tom King for 2 hours and it was awesome. Kelly Jones and Tim Sheridan, like those are the things that are really cool.
it's amazing when the well doesn't run dry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was in the shower the other day and I was
Oh, okay.
out right.
It's getting dark out. I guess we're in a whole other
Hey now.
jump to
And
PG-13.
I remember I was thinking of like just some things that I still wanted to ask Dan DiDio because I felt like I emptied the clip when we had him on. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I want to know about this and this and this and this and this, you know. So I know he just got back from San Diego Comic Con, so I'll email him. But speaking of email things, so I don't know if you saw it, but 2 weeks ago, Gail Simone posted a tweet and she put, Dan DiDio never let us work on our dream projects because he said once we did, we'd have nowhere else to go.
Hmm.
You remember running across that at all by chance?
No, I don't
All
think
right.
so. I'd have to look it
So,
up.
so I took a screenshot and just for my own curiosity, I'm not trying to be
Mhm.
like, Gossip Gertie.
Yeah.
I took the screenshot and I emailed to Dan. I'm like, hey Dan, just wanted to verify, is this true or not? So he texts me back a few hours later. He, emails me back. He's like, I don't know what Gail's talking about because if I remember correctly, she worked on Birds of Prey. She worked on and like 2 other titles she worked on. He goes, so sadly, I think she's mistaken, he said. And I was like,
She's a
okay.
liar. You heard it here. Gail
But like,
Simone's a liar.
yeah, but I didn't post it on Twitter. I didn't make it.
No, of
This is
course
the
not.
first time that I'm mentioning it, in front of a camera and microphone. Like I talked to Scott, my co-pilot, about it, and we had a chuckle, you know.
Hmm.
But it's not like, oh,
Yeah.
let me, run and tell everybody. Yeah.
I wonder, has she ever said what her, that'd be an interesting, but I also know it would be hard too, for somebody to come right out. And it's almost like them saying, and I'm not going to equate it to the pick your favorite child thing. No, it's just like in their body of work, like what is the dream project that you did get to work on?
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of people picks, we said Scott Snyder, all right, what's your dream project? It has to have been your Batman run, right? And it's like, I feel he could very understandably say, like, at the time, yeah. But since then, I've also done this, 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 and this. And like those have become like dream projects that I didn't know they were going to be my dream projects. But it'd be curious to ask the question to see who maybe does have an answer, that maybe Simone did say, well, Birds of Prey, that was my goal and I
Oh
got
yeah,
it.
he said
Like that's what
Birds of
stands out,
Prey,
something like
Batgirl,
that.
and Wonder Woman. That's it. You just rang my bell. Yeah, those three
Yeah.
things: Birds
Okay.
of Prey, Batgirl, and Wonder Woman. So
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, but yeah.
I'll say it now. My dream project is to write Batman comics.
Hey, wouldn't that be cool?
I'd like that.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be great.
I
Or a
remember,
Turtles comic.
dude, no joke. I remember when I was 20, I think I was like 20 or 21, and I was actually working on a portfolio to draw because I like to draw. I was working on a portfolio to bring with me
Nice.
to New York Comic Con. My dad was like all about it. And then I forgot what happened that derailed it, but I was actually working on an actual portfolio. And at the time, Joe Quesada, he had this outline on Marvel Comics of what you
Hmm.
wanted, what you would want to put 3 pages, beginning, middle, and end of like a fight scene, beginning, middle, and end of a team, like with a fight scene, 3 pages, and then 3 pages of someone getting dressed, brushing their teeth, drinking their coffee, eating their breakfast, going outside, starting their car, 3 pages each. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So that's what I was doing. and I was
Hmm.
working on different camera angles from books that I had read in the past. And
Yep.
yeah, I always wondered what would have been if that had worked out, but I remember that specifically. So
I'm so jealous of people that can draw. I wish that that's something that I could do.
well,
I
according
can't. I can't draw. I
Greg
can't draw.
Capullo says if you read what is it, the drawing on the right side of your brain, and I actually brought that to him because here in Guilderland, it's about 8, 9 years ago, he actually did Batman Day. I think it was 2017. He did Batman Day at the local library because he used to live in Schenectady. And if you ever listen to any of his stories, he talks about how he would take a train from Schenectady down to the city, and Larry Hama would yell at him and tell him how bad his art was. So he came from Schenectady and he was there, and it was like me and like 100 other people just in the little like conference room, just peppering him with questions. And he had the mic, he was up on the stage. It was just us and him. It was one of the coolest things. He signed
Yeah.
things, he took a picture with me. I met him and Scott a few times down in New York City at the Comic Con. They also did this thing, I think in Soho at an Apple store that I went to, and met them and took a picture. Like they were super nice to me, and I always remember that. So,
That's great. I got
and
to
I
meet
love the story.
Scott at the C2E2 also. That was the big finale that day, was getting his signature. So, and that was the first thing he said as I went walking up, because I was wearing uh this Batman book club um like a hoodie that I have that I
Merch,
just imprinted
merch.
on imprinted on myself. And the first thing he said, he was like, "Oh man, that is a badass logo." And I was like, I wish I could say I
Scott
created it, but
Snyder
I
said,
didn't.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I was like, thanks, Scott. And then I got to talk to him for like, like 2 minutes, because as you can imagine, he had a very long line.
yeah."
Um, but yeah, he was cool. He was really cool too. And I told him, um, Severed. Have you ever read his story, Severed?
No, but it sounds like a horror thing that he loves.
It is, so never mind. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not surprised.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that was
Nightmares, nightmares.
I think that was pre-Batman. Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
told I had that in hardcover, and I told him, and he signed that, and I told him, I was like, man, this is one of my favorite things that you've ever done. I love this story. And so, he's appreciative and said something about like where the the idea or the theme of that story came from. And then I had my absolute Black Mirror, and I go, I hope I worded it like I think I did, but I fear I kind of, it's like
Yeah,
but I was like, a lot of people credit Court of Owls as like your best Batman work, and rightfully so. But I was like, I think this is my favorite thing like this is my favorite work that you've done. And it was, his Black Mirror run. And then he was like, oh man, thanks. That's nice. And then he said, basically said about his motivation for that story, or his theme of that story, where that came from too. Um, I would love it if that absolute I can get Jock and Francesco Francavilla to sign that too, and then to get the trifecta of that absolute, that'd be awesome. And
Now,
yeah, because yeah, I love that run
when you went to C2E2, did you have to like get there early to cop a spot in line, or do you remember?
for Scott.
Yeah.
Uh, Sean was Sean was the first thing. So his signing was at 10:30, and the doors didn't open till 10. So I just kind of went. I guess his too. Then I mean, I went. It was my first con. Um, I went directly to his spot, and there was only like 3 people at the time that were there already. And so I was like, okay. And I think I walked through and I went to like the bathroom or something and then came back. And then, like it was up to like 10 or 15 people. I'm like, okay, hopping in line.
Wow.
But Scott's I was there probably like an hour or so before, and there was quite a line already. And then others, anywhere else I stopped at during the day to get some others, it was like oh, there they are, I'm gonna go get them. And it was like waiting a couple minutes or
Right.
something.
Right. Same thing in New York Comic Con. The first one I went to, I thought I could just show up and get their autograph, him and Capullo.
Hmm.
And so I show up and I go and the line's capped. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, we're not letting anybody else on. Like, you want to see grown man tears? Like, this is the
Yeah.
first time I've ever said this, again, in front of a camera. I literally started to like tear up and well up. This is back in like 2014. And my ex, who was with me at the time, she's like, give me some money and I'll buy your way into the line. And I was like, all right, well, start low, start at 20 and don't go higher than 100. She's like, okay. So I gave her 520s. Next thing you know, 3 minutes later, and like the heartache was so real, Ryan, that I actually left Artist Alley and I was like out by the front door, like expecting failure. She calls me like 10 minutes later. I got you a spot in line. I'm like, really? She's like, yes. I was like, how much? She goes,
Wow.
$80. I'm like, okay. So I got in line and I got like 4 signatures from them on 4 of my books. I got to like meet them. It was like meeting, the Beatles at that time.
Yeah.
That was my first time meeting them. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And to like snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, it was so exciting. But then
Wow.
there's a thing called here, there's guys, it's called sold, same old line dudes. And I've actually called them because the train ride here is 2.5 hours each way down there. And then
Mm.
it's like another 20 minutes just to walk there. So you're talking about 3 hours each way, right?
That's a trip. Yeah.
Right. So I called these guys, I set it up, and you give them $20 an hour and they stand in line for you. So when I
Oh
got
my
to the
gosh.
show, I show up, I pay them, they hop out of line, I get in line. So
Does
like
anybody
that's
around them like
yes,
raise an
yeah,
eyebrow?
yeah, yeah, of
Like,
course, of
what the?
course. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But like
Huh.
down there, it's more acceptable because like people do that for iPhones too. They were telling me they're like, yeah, we stand in line for iPhones for celebrity appearances, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh wow. So I remember doing that. Like that's how serious it was. It's not as
Sure.
serious anymore because I've kind of like I've gone through that phase and like met
Yeah.
most of the people. So, but
Yeah.
like that's how real it is. And I really did cry man tears in 2014. So
I mean, yeah, if you're going something and it's like, this is what I want, and then that's
right,
taken from you, it's like,
right.
uh, it sounds harsh, taken from you, but you aren't
No,
able to do that thing, then it is like, oh man, it's not, I didn't have the man tears, but Kevin Eastman was at that C2E2 as well.
okay,
And I always say that I was a Turtles fan before I was a Batman fan,
okay.
but I don't remember a time where I didn't love either one of them. Like, as far back as my memory goes, I love Turtles and Batman. But I'm like, okay. And every time I went by, it's like the line was kind of long. The one time we went by, I was with two friends and we were going to go to lunch. We were leaving to go to lunch, and the line wasn't that long for Kevin Eastman. I'm like, well, I mean, it's like 1:30 or 2 o'clock right now. This is going until 6. We're good. We're good. And then after that, the line was really long the rest of the day and I didn't get it. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever be in a spot to get his autograph again. Damn. Like that's my regret from that one, that I didn't just go and him wait in line, because it would have been worth it. Would have been
Yeah.
totally worth it.
There were other cons. I went to like 4 more after that. And I actually, as more prints came out of hardcovers and whatnot, I'd stand in line like 2 hours just for Scott and Greg to sign my books. Like when I met
Wow.
Kevin Conroy,
Wow.
same thing. I was in line for like 2.5 hours. I was hungry and tired. And I remember being
Sure.
like, I want to get out of the line. But once I met him, it was like it was magical. It was like meeting Walt
Yeah.
Disney, I
And
guess,
then
if you
now it's like, I was fine. I got food after. I'm okay.
yeah.
And it's like totally worth the wait.
Yep.
Totally worth it.
He put his arm
Yeah.
around me, took a picture with me. It was the
there
coolest
is
thing, dude.
there's video on Batman on film, I believe, of, because Pete and Haas 2019 New York Comic Con, and that was when Batman Beyond, the Blu-ray release,
Oh
was
yes.
out. So they were there. Will Friedle was there too, and yeah, they both got to interview and meet Kevin Conroy. And Haas, even, you could just see he's so just like swoon, just
Yes.
like, huh. And I think,
Yes. Yes.
what did he say? Like, Conroy put his arm around, because they had a camera and a mic, and yeah, I think Conroy put his arm around Haas, and Haas even does a head lean as he's talking. He's like, sort of
Oh,
deal,
dude,
just
that's
completely
awesome.
genuine. It's
Yeah.
completely genuine. It's not him
Yeah.
trying to be
He's
funny,
caught up.
anything.
Right. He was caught up in the moment.
Because then I think I was driving to Chicago that Sunday night, and Haas called me and he was telling me about it and everything. He's like, dude, he put his arm around me and I just like leaned my head on him. And then I saw the video and I'm like, oh my God, you did. You really did. You just leaned into that Conroy hug.
Yeah.
But man, totally worth it.
Well, now it's priceless, dude. Because
Yeah,
obviously it's over
absolutely.
15. So awesome. But dude, I genuinely appreciate you making some time for me. It's been a pleasure. And I knew like we were gonna hit it off like two peas in a pod. You're a wonderful person. Um, no, you are. You can tell a lot by a person by listening to them. You're a wonderful guy, and dude, I saved that episode of you and Chloe on Dark Knight's Metal because I've listened to it twice now, and I feel like each time I've gotten little tidbits because I tried to be hyped for that story, but it just drives me insane. So
Same. And yeah, and the last thing before we go. So that one, I looked forward to the idea. And as I said on there, and I feel like a lot of this conversation is just me repeating stuff you've probably heard me say then already. But
I love that
I
you
said
do
like,
that, by the way. Hold on. I love that you do that. It's almost like your inner monologue. It's like your subconscious comes out. I do the same thing. And sometimes people look at me and I'm like, no, don't worry. Just don't mind me. Anyway, where were we?
yeah, I got to work through this. I got to
No, I
work
love
through
it.
this.
I love it. I love it.
The last night on Earth that once again Eric Carter was on to do, and I'm like, ooh, this is the first one where I don't like this story, but I look
Mhm.
forward to talking about it because I'm not going to come in and just like dump all over
Poop on it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you do that. Why would Kelly Jones, Tom King, Tim Sheridan want to come on? Just like this guy is just like a loud, obnoxious voice. I'm
Hmm.
like, no, I'm approaching this, evaluating it, finding good things, things that didn't work for me, things I'm confused by. And so when Cloud said that he wanted to do metal, like, I'm such a like planner. Like I think I have the rest of this year planned out for the show. And it's just timing of my schedule, their schedule, and all that stuff. And I knew for a while he wanted this one. And I'm like, okay, it's time. He didn't know what I thought about it. I try to not tell people if I haven't said it like through socials or on other episodes. I try to not tell people. So I'm like, so when we're talking, that's when you're gonna find out what I think, along with whoever else listens. And that one was like, oh, I have not revisited this since it came out. I don't like this story, but I know I don't like it. I want to hear Clow
What is,
explain to me
why does
what's
he like
going
it?
on with this
Yeah.
freaking story.
Yeah.
And I know how smart this guy is. I want to hear him make sense of it and like what he, latches onto and everything. And then yeah, like that story, I start off doing the work reading and trying to make sense and connect the dots and stuff. I'm like, this is a lot of work on my
Didn't you
brain,
say you
but
made
I think I'm
notes?
still there. No,
Okay.
I was thinking about it.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Right. Yeah, you're right.
See, I'm
Because I
gonna,
think I had my phone and I was writing type notes of like trying to connect the dots on things and then yeah, it just got to like halfway through the back half of that. I'm just like, what in the hell is going on? I don't know what's going on here. That story's so frustrating. And I'm just like, this is bonkers. Now I like that I enjoy the challenge of not just to be like, this story is bonkers and it sucks.
yeah,
Because it could just be me, because it has its fans.
sure.
And then to find out like Clow is like he's not head over heels on it. He's just like, I just think this would be fun to talk with you about on. And I'm like, well, that's freaking awesome. And so I hope that it was enjoyable to listen to because
It
I
was.
sometimes felt like I was just circling the drain where he's
Every,
just nailing points and I'm
just
like,
about every single, dude, just about every single thing you said as I'm listening to it, I'm like, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cause like, I just didn't get it. I didn't get it.
yeah, I didn't either. And then I've never read death metal
Don't.
and
It's
I was
terrible. All right. I'll tell
somebody
you,
okay. No, you're okay.
it's
Because
so
that's what my impression is. And I'm like, I need to have that completely shaken. And when the
Dark
window's open,
Knight's
that I'm open, then I
Dark
will.
Knight's metal is like kindergarten compared to like Dark Knight's death metal. Just like, I don't know what. There's a
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan
Yeah.
Flash. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Like, I don't
that's
get
what I
it.
feel like, right? It's still too soon. I'm still too close to metal that I
Yeah.
can't read death metal yet.
Yeah.
One
Like,
day I'll try or I will, and then just see
I look
what do I
forward to
really
talking
think.
about that, but you got to have Chris back on. You got to reserve that for him.
Sure, if he wants to talk about it.
Yeah. You
I'm gonna
guys could
ask him to
do,
come on again because it was 2 years since he's been on. I'm like, what? How could I have been so
really?
rude?
Wow.
That yeah, I'll ask him again and hopefully he'll pick something
Cool.
a little more sane.
All right, man. Well, I could keep talking to you, but I'm gonna hang it up.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
I
you
gotta go eat
coming on,
supper.
dude.
Well, I
Eat
appreciate
supper.
the invite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's very important.
no, it is. It is very